Hi. I'd like to share with you the story of a hopeful patient who had carried the sadness of a traumatic childhood through the first 3 decades of her life. Feeling like a burden since she was too young to even understand why she would feel that way about herself, this patient experienced an acute sense of worthlessness and shame, nurtured in no small part by her consistently unavailable mother. Her mother struggled with alcoholism and depression and would flip between unpredictably harsh and explosive and absent in bed for hours. I was honored to share in this patient's first ever journey through a set of ketamine infusions while providing a course of psychotherapy. Combining these two healing methods illuminated for her how she had internalized her mother's depression. Ketamine infusions helped to clarify how her negative core beliefs were just a reflection of her childhood neglect. As I supported her through the course of treatment, she began to see how her consistently depressed mood and fear of rocking the boat in relationships flowed directly from the painful experiences of emotional deprivation. Ketamine gave this patient the flexibility to emotionally separate herself from her mother. And this patient discovered, as she put it, that I am okay as I am. I sought to deepen her newfound self-acceptance by teaching her how to nurture her inner child. She reflected after her final infusion, I am not too much. I actually feel at peace with myself. We were able to integrate some EMDR trauma processing and inner child work to help the client take care of her inner child, which helped her to disidentify with her fearful younger self, freeing her up to experience joy, wonder, and compassion, and even love for herself. For the last 15 years, I've worked as a psychotherapist and have heard similar stories from a wide array of patients. Overwhelming life experiences that brought patients to their knees, stuck in anxiety and an intractable depression. Before the option of ketamine, therapy would take years. This is because with severe depression, the cognitive component of talk therapy can bring limited results. Individuals who are struggling with the heavy weight of severe depression are too shut down, too collapsed to benefit from insight-oriented psychotherapy. When we are severely depressed, we run and hide into ourselves. We retreat from the world. In the meantime, the negative beliefs about self, I'm unworthy, I'm defective, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, become more and more believable. So with severe depression, we need to get moving first and get out of our default collapsed mode before we can begin to look inward and explore the meaningful reasons behind why we have landed here. For many, this means trying many different medications and other treatments to reduce the depression enough to do the insight-oriented work in therapy. However, for those individuals with treatment-resistant depression who have tried many medications and other treatments, such as ECT, RTMS, neurofeedback, and various forms of talk therapy with limited results, individuals can come to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy as a last resort, feeling scared and hopeless. As ketamine begins to lighten the burden of the physical and psychological aspects of depression, many clients become more able to do important work with the help of their therapy sessions. Some begin to experience themselves as autonomous beings, cultivating and practicing healthier boundaries, pulling away from enmeshed or codependent relationships. Showing up more authentically in relationships, many learn how to state their needs instead of being either explosive or withdrawn. With a greater sense of agency, these patients can begin to feel safe enough to process traumatic events that have kept them stuck in states of hypervigilance, helping them improve their relationships with themselves. Some even open up to the possibility of cultivating self-acceptance instead of self-defeating perfectionism. I've also been hearing how patients have been feeling generally more relaxed and are sleeping better. They begin to reduce their dependence on avoidance strategies and show up more fully in their lives. Ultimately, these patients work to recognize that they are not defective, unworthy beings, and that they are lovable and capable of pursuing their goals. Like many of the individuals who choose to come to become patients at Toronto Ketamine Clinic, I too was not entirely sure about what ketamine-assisted psychotherapy would be like. Would it be different from the various treatment modalities I've been practicing with clients over the last 15 years? Would people of different ages, social and cultural backgrounds react differently to the treatment? Would some tolerate it, even benefit from it, while others be unable to accept it as a legitimate form of medicine? These questions have now mostly become rhetorical. I've witnessed many patients make rapid progress with ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. As one patient recently clarified, I have accomplished in 1 month of this treatment what would have taken over 1 year of therapy without the assistance of ketamine. So I've talked about how ketamine assists the process of psychotherapy, but how exactly does therapy bolster the effectiveness of ketamine as a treatment for depression? Part of the answer lies in the basic human need for emotional support, which therapy provides. It's important to know that someone is there to debrief both the highs and the lows of this intensive treatment. But the critical role that talk therapy plays in improving the efficacy of ketamine becomes clear in the uncharted territory of bridging what happens during an infusion to the rest of the patient's life, past, present, and future. The personal experiences under the influence of ketamine that may otherwise prove difficult to articulate can become a springboard for meaningful change. Having someone in your corner who embodies unconditional positive regard for you is not merely an add-on to a regimen of ketamine treatments, but is a decisive factor for helping patients integrate non-ordinary states of consciousness into the humdrum of daily life after the infusion is over. Most recently, I worked with a patient who realized how depression had disconnected her from any sense of wonder. This generated an acute sense of melancholy. She struggled to find interest in the people, places, and things she routinely encountered through her long and often difficult days. During one of her infusions, this patient envisioned herself connected to a lake of love. She experienced this body of water connecting her to extended family from previous generations. She felt that those who had come before her had already transmitted love and concern to her. She just hadn't been aware of this embedded love until she came upon this body of metaphorical healing water within herself, a habitat for the growth of self-compassion and an important reminder that she was no longer alone. Indeed, this client who had been so stuck and fixated in her depression felt more open as a result of the ketamine. After her last infusion, she noticed daisies on the side of the highway. This was profound for her, a symbol of the beauty that she had been disconnected from as a result of the burden of depression. Therapy thus provides a golden opportunity to make meaning of the non-ordinary states of consciousness and integrate them into the rest of patients' lives. It's as if the ketamine infusion provides a window into the beauty, love, and wonder that is already inside of them and otherwise hidden. Before I end, I wanted to leave you with the realization that a patient shared with me after her first ketamine infusion. Having survived a terribly harsh and emotionally invalidating childhood, this patient spent much of her adult life deeply depressed. She left the clinic, walked down the street, paused, and reflected on what she was feeling inside. So this is what self-love feels like. Thank you.